Daeho was a miner working alone in the edge of space until one distress signal changed everything. He saved Lyra, a hunted alien with glowing hair and secrets darker than the void itself.
This tastes
Weeks
better
passed.
than usual tonight.
Repairs turned
Maybe
into
it's just the
late-night
company.
meals. Strangers became something more. But the hunters never stopped. When 3 military ships surrounded the station, demanding surrender, Daeho made the most reckless choice of his life. He abandoned everything and fled with her into the unknown. Now they're tearing through hyperspace in a half-broken ship, and reality is collapsing around them. The engines
Critical
scream.
system failure.
Warnings
Hull
flood
integrity
the cockpit.
compromised.
Lyra's hands shake on the controls as she shouts orders. Daeho grabs the burning crystal matrix, his skin blistering as he fights to turn it. One wrong move and they're dead.
We are dropping too fast.
The ship convulses violently. The universe twists into impossible colors. His muscles scream, but he doesn't let go. What happens next? Daeho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the pressure gauge on the mining drill for the 3rd time that hour. The readings still showed red, which meant the coolant system was failing again. He worked alone on the asteroid mining station, a job most humans avoided because of the isolation. But Daeho preferred it that way. No commanders barking orders, no crew politics. Just him and the rocks floating in space. The station orbited a resource-rich asteroid field on the edge of known space, far from the established trade routes where the Council races operated their massive commercial vessels. Earth was still new to the galactic community, barely 50 years since first contact, and humans took whatever work they could get. Mining asteroids in forgotten corners of space paid well enough for Daeho to send money back to his family on Earth while saving for his own ship someday. He was adjusting the drills. Alignment when his proximity alarm shrieked. Daeho jumped, hitting his head on a low ceiling of the equipment bay. He rushed to the main console, expecting to see another rogue asteroid drifting too close to the station. Instead, his screen showed a ship, small and badly damaged, tumbling through the field, on a collision course with one of the larger rocks. The vessel was unlike anything in the standard databases. Its hull bore elegant curves that seemed more artistic than functional, covered in symbols that glowed faintly, even as sparks erupted from a gash along its side. Daeho tried hailing it on every frequency, but received only static in response. He watched helplessly as the ship spun towards certain destruction, its engines dead, its trajectory unchangeable by any force except direct intervention. Every regulation, every safety protocol, every piece of training Daeho had received screamed at him to stay put. His mining station had no towing equipment rated for ship recovery. His small maintenance pod was designed for short trips to repair external equipment, not rescue operations. The damaged vessel was heading into the densest part of the asteroid field, where even experienced pilots feared to navigate. The smart choice, the safe choice, was to log the incident and let nature take its course. Daeho was already pulling on his pressure suit before he finished that thought. His hands moved on autopilot, checking seals and oxygen levels while his mind calculated intercept vectors. The maintenance pod detached from the station with a hiss of release clamps, and Daeho pushed the thrusters to maximum. The small craft shuddered as it accelerated, never designed for this kind of speed or maneuverability. He wove through the asteroid, felt like he was threading a needle in an earthquake. Rocks the size of buildings drifted past, some moving fast enough to shear through his pod's thin hull like paper. Daeho's heart hammered in his chest, but his hands stayed steady on the controls. He had grown up poor in Bizin, working on fishing boats before he was old enough for school, and the ocean had taught him that hesitation killed faster than bold action. The damaged ship clipped a smaller asteroid and began spinning faster. Daeho matched its rotation, bringing his pod alongside the hull. Up close, he could see the damage was catastrophic. The entire port side looked like something had torn through it with claws, exposing interior compartments to vacuum. Ice crystals glittered where moisture had frozen instantly in the void. His pod had a magnetic coupling system meant for attaching to station hull plates during repairs. Daeho had no idea if it would hold a tumbling ship, but he engaged it anyway. The magnets grabbed the alien hull with a clang he felt through his boots. His pod's computer immediately screamed warnings about structural stress, but Daeho ignored them and fired his thrusters in opposition to the ship's spin. The maintenance pod groaned. Metal shrieked in protest. For a terrible moment, Daeho thought the coupling would tear free and send both vessels careening into the rocks. Then, slowly and possibly, the rotation began to decrease. Daeho adjusted his thrust angle, using every trick he had learned in 2 years of precision mining work. Sweat stung his eyes, but he did not dare let go of the controls to wipe it away. When the ship finally stabilized, Daeho sat back in his seat, his entire body shaking. He had minutes, maybe less, before the vessel drifted into another collision. The smart thing now would be to tow it back to his station, call for proper authorities, and let them handle whatever was inside. But through the gash in the hull, Daeho could see movement in one of the interior compartments, faint and weak. But definitely there someone was alive in there. Daeho checked his suit's oxygen supply and grabbed the emergency repair kit from under his seat. The kit contained hull patches, sealant foam, and a plasma cutter for emergencies. He cycled through the pod's tiny airlock and used his suit jets to cross the gap to the damaged ship. The edges of the torn metal were sharp and irregular, but he found handholds and pulled himself inside. The interior was dark, except for emergency lighting that pulsed in colors his eyes struggled to interpret. The atmosphere had vented, leaving everything coated in frost. Daeho activated his helmet lights and made his way deeper into the ship, following the life sign his suit's basic scanner had detected. He passed through what might have been a living area, with furniture that seemed designed for a body shape very different from human, all of it now floating loose in zero gravity. He found her in what looked like a sleeping chamber, strapped into a pod that had partially deployed its emergency cushions. She was small, maybe half Daeho's size, with skin that shifted between pale blue and silver depending on how his light hit it. Her face was humanoid enough that he recognized it as a face, with 2 large eyes currently closed, a small nose, and a mouth. But her proportions were delicate in a way that made her look almost fragile. And her hair floated around, her head in strands that seemed to glow with their own soft light. Her suit had torn across the abdomen, and dark fluid that might have been blood had frozen around the wound. Daeho's medical training was basic, taught in a 3-day certification course that mostly covered what to do if you cut yourself on mining equipment. He had no idea how to help an alien with unknown biology, but her chest rose and fell in shallow movements, and that was enough to tell him she needed immediate help. He pulled the repair kit's medical supplies, which consisted of universal coagulant foam and synthetic skin patches that supposedly worked on most carbon-based life forms. Daeho applied them to her wound, working as gently as his thick gloves allowed. The foam expanded and hardened, sealing the tear in her suit and hopefully stopping whatever bleeding was happening underneath. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused and confused. They were entirely black, without visible pupils or whites, and they seemed to drink in his helmet lights like pools of still water. She tried to speak, and her mouth moved, but no sound reached Daeho through the vacuum. Her hand, slender with 4 long fingers, reached up and touched his helmet faceplate. The gesture seemed questioning, almost childlike in its uncertainty. Daeho pointed to himself, then to his maintenance pod, visible through the gash in the hull. He made exaggerated gestures of carrying her, hoping she would understand. She nodded, a gesture that translated perfectly across species, and tried to unfasten her restraints. Her fingers fumbled weakly, and Daeho gently pushed them aside to do it himself. She weighed almost nothing in zero gravity. The Deho still moved carefully as he guided her through the wrecked ship. She was conscious but clearly struggling, one hand pressed against her injured side. When they reached the gap in the hull, she hesitated, looking at the open space beyond with something that might have been fear. Deho understood that feeling perfectly. He had felt it every time he did a spacewalk in his first months on the station. He pointed to himself again, then wrapped one arm around her carefully, making sure to avoid her wound. With his other hand, he activated his suit jets. They crossed the gap together, and Deho helped her into the maintenance pod's cramped interior. The airlock was designed for one person, so they squeezed in together. Her small frame pressed against his chest as the pressure equalized. When they finally entered the pod's pressurized cabin, Deho heard her gasp as atmosphere returned. He removed his helmet and was immediately struck by a scent like rain and flowers, coming from her or perhaps from her torn suit. She pulled off her own helmet with trembling hands, and Deho got his first clear look at her face. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with human standards. Her features arranged in perfect proportions that somehow conveyed both strength and vulnerability. "Thank you," she said, and Deho nearly jumped out of his suit in surprise. Her voice was musical and clear, speaking perfect Korean with just a hint of an accent he could not place. "You speak Korean?" he asked, too shocked to manage anything more intelligent. "I speak many languages," she replied softly. "My translator implant adjusts to neural patterns. I heard your thoughts as you worked on my ship, felt your determination to save me, even when logic said to flee. You are human, yes?" Deho nodded slowly, still processing this. "My name is Deho. Are you hurt badly?" "I don't know anything about your biology." She touched the patch he had applied, wincing slightly. "I will survive, thanks to you. My name is Lyra. I am Verithian, from the Inner Rim Systems. You saved my life. Deho of humanity. What happened to your ship?" Deho asked as he maneuvered the pod away from the asteroid field, towing her damaged vessel behind them with the magnetic coupling. "Was it pirates?" Lyra's expression darkened, those black eyes somehow conveying deep sadness despite their uniform color. "Hunters. My people are few, and certain factions in the galaxy hunt us for our genetic material. We have abilities they wish to exploit. I fled, but they damaged my engine core. I thought I would die out here." "You're safe now," Deho said firmly. "My station has medical supplies and food. We'll get you patched up and call for help." "No." Lyra reached out and grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "You cannot call the authorities. The hunters have contacts everywhere. If they know I survived, they will come for me, and they will kill anyone who helped me." Deho looked at her frightened face and made a decision that would change everything. "Then we won't call them. You can stay at my station until you're healed and your ship is repaired." "I can help with that. Why?" Lyra asked, stunning him with those fathomless eyes. "You do not know me. My presence puts you in danger. Most species would have left me to die or turned me over for a reward. Why risk yourself?" Deho thought about that question as he docked the pod with his station. Why had he rushed out to save a stranger? Why was he agreeing to harbor someone who might bring trouble to his doorstep? The answer was simple, even if he could not articulate it well. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said finally. "And where I come from, we don't abandon people who need help. That's just not how humans work." Lyra smiled for the first time, and it transformed her face entirely. "I have heard stories about humans. Other species call you reckless, stubborn, unable to recognize when you should give up. They say humans do not know when to quit, even when faced with impossible odds. I thought they were exaggerations. Maybe we are a bit stubborn," Deho admitted as he helped her out of the pod. "But if I had quit when things looked impossible, you'd be dead right now. So I'd say being stubborn has its advantages. The station's medical bay was designed for human injuries, but Deho did his best to make Lyra comfortable. He set up a cot for her and gathered what supplies he thought might be useful. She refused most of his offered medications, explaining that her metabolism would treat them as toxins. But she accepted water and the basic nutritional paste that came in the station's emergency rations. "It tastes like metal and sadness," she said after trying a spoonful. But she smiled again to show she was joking. "Yeah, the flavor scientists really outdid themselves with that one," Deho agreed. "I've got some real food too. Rice, dried vegetables, instant noodles. Not fancy, but better than paste." He prepared a simple meal, cooking it in the station's small galley while Lyra rested in the medical bay. He found himself humming as he worked, something he rarely did in his solitary routine. When he brought the food to her, she sat up carefully and accepted the bowl with both hands, a gesture that seemed formal and respectful. "In my culture, sharing a meal creates a bond of trust," Lyra said. "By eating your food, I place my life in your hands, and you have already proven yourself worthy of that trust." They ate together in comfortable silence. Deho watched as Lyra tried each component of the meal carefully, her expression showing surprise and pleasure at the simple flavors. When she finished, she set the bowl down and looked at him seriously. "I need to repair my ship's engine core," she said. "But the damage is extensive, and the parts required are rare. Even if we could acquire them, the repair would take weeks of work." "I can help," Deho offered immediately. "I'm a decent mechanic, and I've got tools and materials for mining equipment. Maybe something will be compatible." "The technology is very different," Lyra warned. "Varethian engines operate on principles your science has not yet discovered. I would need to guide you through every step, and even then, the chances of success are slim." Deho grinned. "Well, lucky for you. I don't really understand the concept of slim chances. Let's take a look at what we're working with." Over the following days, Deho and Lyra worked side by side on her damaged ship. They set up a temporary workshop in the station's cargo bay, where her vessel barely fit through the airlock. Lyra walked him through the basics of Varethian technology, which operated on something she called resonance harmonics, rather than standard fusion or antimatter reactions. "Your engines push against space," she explained, gesturing with those graceful four-fingered hands. "Ours convince space to move us where we wish to go. The distinction is subtle but fundamental." "That makes absolutely no sense," Deho said cheerfully, "but I think I'm starting to see how the components fit together. This crystal matrix here, it stores the harmonic patterns, right?" "Yes, exactly." Lyra's face lit up with excitement. "You learn quickly, Deho. Most species require months of study to understand even basic concepts." They fell into an easy rhythm. Deho would work during what he considered morning, tackling the physical repairs and fabricating replacement parts using his mining equipment's industrial printer. Lyra would rest and recover during this time, her wound healing with surprising speed. In the afternoons, they worked together on the more delicate repairs that required her knowledge and his hands. Evenings became Deho's favorite time. They would cook dinner together, Lyra showing him dishes from her world that he could approximate with his limited ingredients, and him teaching her the Korean meals his mother had made when he was young. They would eat and talk, sharing stories about their lives and their worlds. "Vareth is a water world," Lyra told him one night. "Our cities float on the oceans, connected by bridges of living coral that we have cultivated for generations. The sky is always filled with aurora, created by our planet's magnetic field interacting with 3 moons. I miss the sound of waves at night. I grew up near the ocean too," Deho said. "In Bizen, on Earth. My family fished for generations. The ocean is in my blood," my father used to say. "That's probably why I ended up out here. floating in a different kind of sea. "Do you miss it?" Lyra asked. "Your home? Your family?" "Every day," Deho admitted. "But I send money back, and that helps them. My younger brother is in university now because of what I earn here. That makes the loneliness worth it." Lyra reached across the small table and placed her hand over his. Her skin felt cool and smooth, and where she touched him, Deho felt a faint tingling sensation that was not unpleasant. "You are not lonely now," she said softly, "and neither am I." The simple truth of that statement hung in the air between them. Deho had been alone on this station for 2 years, and he had convinced himself that he preferred it that way. But Lyra's presence had shown him how much he had been missing. The sound of another voice, the pleasure of shared meals, the simple comfort of knowing someone else was nearby. And more than that, something was growing between them that went beyond companionship. As the days turned into weeks, Deho found himself watching Lyra when she did not notice. The way her luminous hair moved when she leaned over a pair, flowing like water in the station's light gravity. The way she hummed while she worked, wordless melodies that seemed to resonate in his chest. The way she smiled when he made a particularly terrible joke, her whole face transforming with genuine amusement. He tried to ignore these feelings. Lyra was from a different world, a different species. She would leave when her ship was repaired, returning to her people and her life. Whatever connection they had built was temporary, a brief moment of closeness in the vast emptiness of space. Getting attached would only lead to pain, but Deho had never been good at protecting himself from pain. It was not the human way, at least not his way. So he let himself care, let himself enjoy every moment they had together, even knowing it would hurt when she left. Lyra seemed to feel it too. He caught her watching him sometimes, those black eyes studying his face with an intensity that made his breath catch. When they worked together in the close confines of her ship, she would find reasons to touch him. A hand on his shoulder for balance, fingers brushing his as she passed him tools. Each contact sent that pleasant tingling through him, and he found himself seeking out more excuses to be close to her. One night, as they sat together in the station's observation bubble watching the stars, Lyra spoke quietly. "My people can sense emotions," she said. "It is part of our neural structure, a form of limited telepathy. I can feel what you feel, Deho. Your loneliness from before I arrived, your determination when you saved me, your kindness as you care for me, and now something else. Something growing stronger each day." Deho's heart raced. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I know this situation is temporary, and I shouldn't—" "I feel it too," Lyra interrupted. She turned to face him fully, and in the starlight, her skin seemed to glow with its own luminescence. "What is growing in you is growing in me as well. My people have a word for it, but I think in Korean you would call it affection. Perhaps more than affection. But you're leaving," Deho said, his voice rough. "When the ship is fixed, you'll go back to your world. This isn't real. It's just circumstance bringing us together. Is that what you think?" Lyra moved closer until they were almost touching. This is not real?" "Deho, I have lived among many species, traveled to dozens of worlds. I have met thousands of beings, and not one of them would have done what you did. Not one would have risked themselves for a stranger, would have taken me in knowing the danger, would have worked tirelessly to help me with no thought of reward. You are extraordinary, and what I feel for you is the most real thing I have experienced in years." Deho wanted to believe her. The doubt gnawed at him. "What kind of future could we have? You're being hunted. I'm stuck on this station for another year on my contract. We're from different worlds in every possible way. You speak of quitting." "Before we have even tried," Lyra said, and there was a hint of amusement in her voice. "Is that the human way? To recognize impossible odds and give up?" Despite his confusion and fear, Deho laughed. "When you put it like that, It sounds pretty pathetic. No, I guess that's not really how we do things. Then do not quit on this, Lyra said. She took his hand in both of hers, and that tingling sensation spread up his arm and into his chest. I do not know what the future holds. Perhaps my hunters will find me. Perhaps you will decide this is too complicated and send me away. But I know that right now, in this moment, I have found something precious. Someone who makes me feel safe and valued and understood. I will not quit on that, and I hope you will not either. Deho looked into those fathomless black eyes and saw his own hope and fear reflected there. She was right. He had spent his whole life pushing forward against impossible odds, refusing to quit when things got hard. Why should this be any different? I won't quit, he promised. He raised his free hand and gently touched her face, his calloused fingers surprisingly gentle against her smooth skin. I don't know how to quit, especially not when I've found something worth fighting for. Lyra leaned into his touch, and when she smiled, it was like stars breaking through clouds. They sat together in the observation bubble, holding hands and watching the universe spin around them. And for the first time in years, Deho felt truly at home. The next morning, everything changed. Deho was in the cargo bay, installing the last of the fabricated parts into Lyra's engine core. When the station's proximity alarm sounded, he pulled up the display and felt ice flood his veins. 3 ships, military-grade by their profiles, were approaching fast. They were broadcasting on every frequency, demanding that the station power down and prepare for boarding. Lyra appeared in the cargo bay doorway, her face pale. They found me. The hunters. I am so sorry, Deho. You should tell them I forced you to help me. Maybe they will let you live. Not happening, Deho said flatly. He was already moving, his mind racing through possibilities. How long until your ship is ready? Hours, maybe more. The engine core needs to synchronize with the navigation systems. And I have not even tested. That's not what I asked, Deho interrupted. Can it fly right now, even if it's not perfect? Lyra hesitated. Possibly. But it would be dangerous and unstable. We could tear ourselves apart in hyperspace, or the harmonics could fail and leave us stranded. Better than being captured, Deho said. He moved to the station's main console and started activating systems. Can 2 people fit in your ship? What? Deho, no. You have a life here, a contract. Your family depends on, can 2 people fit? Deho repeated, his voice hard. Yes, Lyra whispered. Yes, 2 can fit. Then we're leaving together. Deho's fingers flew across the console, overriding safety protocols and rerouting power. I'm not letting them take you, and I'm sure as hell not staying here to answer their questions about where you went. So we're both going right now. This is insane, Lyra said, but she was already moving toward her ship. Where would we even go? Anywhere, Deho said with a grin that felt slightly manic. Everywhere. You said your people move around, right? We'll do that. We'll find someplace safe, someplace they can't track us. They will hunt us forever, Lyra warned. This is not a short escape, Deho. This is choosing to be a fugitive. Then I choose that, Deho said simply. He sealed the station systems behind encrypted locks and grabbed his emergency pack. I choose you over this station, over my contract, over safety. Call me stupid if you want, but I'm not losing you now. The hunter ships were close enough now that Deho could see their weapon ports opening. He and Lyra scrambled into her vessel, squeezing into the small cockpit designed for her smaller frame. The controls lit up as she activated them, displaying symbols Deho could not read, but which made Lyra's face tense with concern. The harmonics are unstable, she said, her hands moving over the controls with practiced speed. This could kill us. Or it could work perfectly, Deho countered. You don't know until you try, right? Lyra looked at him, and despite the fear in her eyes, she smiled. You truly do not know when to quit. This is your defining trait as a human. Is that a problem? Deho asked as the ship's engines began to hum with power. No, Lyra said softly. It is one of the many things I love about you. The word hung in the air between them, enormous and terrifying and perfect. Before Deho could respond, the hunter ships fired warning shots across the station's hull. Lyra's hand moved decisively across the controls, and her ship leaped forward with acceleration that pressed Deho back into his seat. They shot through the asteroid field at speeds that would have been suicidal in his maintenance pod. Lyra piloted with a skill that took Deho's breath away, the ship dancing between rocks that blurred past. The hunter vessels followed, larger and more powerful, but nowhere near as agile. One clipped an asteroid and spun away, damaged. The other two kept coming. Hold on, Lyra said, and the ship's harmonic engine engaged with a sound like singing crystal. Reality twisted around them, and Deho felt his stomach drop as they entered hyperspace. The universe stretched and compressed simultaneously. Colors he had no names for streaming past the cockpit windows. Then something went wrong. The ship shuddered violently, and warning lights flooded the cockpit in angry reds and oranges. Lyra struggled with the controls, her voice tight with concentration as she chanted something in her own language. What's happening? Deho shouted over the screaming engines. The harmonics are collapsing. We are going to drop out of hyperspace, but I cannot control where. Lyra's hands moved frantically over the controls. Deho, I need you to do exactly as I say. See that crystal matrix to your left? I need you to rotate it clockwise while I adjust the resonance frequency. Deho found the device she indicated, a complex arrangement of glowing crystals set in a metallic framework. He grabbed it, feeling heat radiating from its surface, and began to turn it. It resisted, fighting his movement like something alive. Keep going, Lyra urged. It will fight you, but you must force it. Deho gritted his teeth and put all his strength into turning the crystal matrix. His hands burned, his muscles screamed, but he did not let go. This was just like every other impossible situation he had faced in his life. When things got hard, you did not quit. You pushed through, even when every logical part of your brain said it was hopeless. The crystal matrix rotated, and suddenly the ship's screaming engines smoothed into a harmonious hum. The violent shaking stopped, and Lyra let out a breath that might have been a sob or a laugh. You did it, she said, her voice full of wonder. The matrix was locked, and I could not free it alone. You have strength beyond what should be possible for your size. Just stubborn, Deho panted, looking at his burned hands. Really, really stubborn. They dropped out of hyperspace in an uncharted system, far from any established routes. Lyra checked their position and shook her head in disbelief. We traveled farther than should be possible with damaged harmonics. We should be dead. Instead, we are somewhere even my people have not fully explored. Is that good or bad? Deho asked. Good, I think. The hunters will not find us easily here. Lyra turned to him, and her expression was soft with emotions Deho was beginning to recognize. You burned yourself for me. You abandoned your life, your family's income, everything you worked for. Why? Deho looked at his hands, already healing thanks to the station's medical kit he had grabbed. You said earlier that you love things about me. That feeling goes both ways. I love how you hum when you work. I love how you tried to protect me by telling me to blame you. I love that you smile even when you're scared. I love talking with you, working with you, just being with you. So when the choice was staying safe and losing you, or risking everything to be with you, it was not really a choice at all. Tears formed in Lyra's black eyes, glowing with the same luminescence as her hair. My people say that when you find someone who knows your heart, you hold on to them with everything you have. Someone who will not quit on you, even when quitting is the logical choice. I have found that in you, Deo. And I found it in you, Deo said. He leaned across the small space between their seats and kissed her gently. Her lips were cool and soft, and that tingling sensation spread through his entire body. But underneath, it was warmth that had nothing to do with physical sensation. When they pulled apart, Lyra smiled through her tears. What do we do now? We are fugitives with a barely functional ship and no resources. Deo laughed, the sound full of genuine joy despite their circumstances. Now we figure it out together. We'll repair your ship properly, find work somewhere the hunters don't look, build a life one day at a time. It won't be easy, and it definitely won't be safe. But if there's one thing humans are good at, it's succeeding even when we shouldn't. The galaxy's deadliest secret, Lyra quoted, her smile widening. Humans do not know when to quit. Damn right we don't, Deo agreed. And you're stuck with this human now, so I hope you're ready for a lot of stubborn determination. I would not want it any other way, Lyra said. She took his burned hands in hers carefully, and he felt her somehow soothing the pain. We will face whatever comes together, and we will not quit until we have built something beautiful from this impossible beginning. They sat together in the cockpit of her damaged ship, floating in an unknown system light years from anything familiar. They had no home, no plan, and countless dangers ahead of them. But they had each other, and for two beings who had both been alone for so long. That was everything. Outside the cockpit windows, a new sun rose over an unexplored planet, painting the sky in colors neither of their worlds had ever seen. It was a fresh start, terrifying and exhilarating. And they would face it the only way they knew how together, stubborn, refusing to quit no matter what the galaxy threw at them. And somewhere in the depths of space, among the countless stars and endless possibilities, a human and a Varethian began to write a new story. One where the most impossible things became possible through nothing more than determination, connection, and the simple refusal to give up on what mattered most.